the ultimate and extent of love. This love is not a conditional love. It's a sacrificial love. This love is so sacrificial that a sacrifice involves a death. And you must be willing to die to your ways, your thoughts, your opinions, so that somebody else can live. A true friend is seen in their sacrifice, and their sacrifice is birthed out of love. To call someone your friend, and you say that person, Lord have mercy, to call someone your friend, and you are saying that person is willing to save your life by giving their own. Lord, I wish I could preach it in here. If you're going to call me friend, according to John, you got to be willing to lay down your own life. If you're going to call me friend, you are saying that I am willing to save your life by giving my own. And if you're calling someone your friend and they are not willing to lay down their life for you, then you contradict the word friend. The statement, lay down my life, it indicates when Jesus said that they will lay down his life, it's a voluntary act. Somebody said voluntary act. No man murdered Jesus. No man took Jesus away. No man caused him to go against his will. He voluntarily gave up his life on a dusty hill called Calvary. And that's what I love about serving in the kingdom. It's on a voluntary basis, because love will volunteer herself without any strings attached. So true love of a friend is just not a voluntary act, but it is a vicarious act. A vicarious act is when you suffer as a substitute for somebody else. In other words, you take the rap for somebody else. And here it is in this text. Look at it. His life was given up for his friends. And when Christ suffered, he took the rap, and the benefits and the blessings became that of his friends. In other words, his death was not for himself. Lord, help me in here. But the death of Jesus Christ was for the death of you and for me. When Jesus went to the cross, what he was doing, he was giving up his life on the behalf of somebody else. He did all of this for you and for me. And I understand, my brothers and sisters, that if you won't call one another friends, and if you're not willing to give up your life for their life, then you contradict the meaning of Jesus with friend. And lastly now, a true friend is just not a voluntary act. It's just not a vicarious act, but it is a victorious moment. When Jesus died on the cross, I don't mean to disturb your theology. I don't mean to mess with your sacred cows, but his death on the cross was not a tragic. His death was a time of great victory. He knew that in his death he has satisfied the righteous demands of an awesome God. He knew that in his death he had completely satisfied the sin problem in this world. And the fact that God was forever satisfied, it proves to us 3 days later, somebody said 3 days later, Jesus rose from the dead with all power in his hand. And now sin could not only be forgiven, Lord help me in here, but redeemed sinners would live forever. Jesus calls us friends, and if we do what he commands us, then we are his friends. Lean over, tell your neighbor, do what the Lord said do. Come on, you ought to tell them, do what the word said do. We are no longer slaves, because slaves on the way out of here does not know what the master is doing. But he calls us friends, which means that Jesus reveals to us what the Father makes known to him. Good God Almighty. I said Jesus, by way of the Spirit, reveals unto us what the Father Father makes known to him. And can I tell you, as a friend, Jesus shares his love. Come here, Jeremiah 31:3. His love is everlasting. Can I tell you, as a friend, Jesus shares his life. This verse tells us that Jesus not only gave his life for us on the cross, but he also imparts unto us life for day-to-day living. And can I tell you that every life he touches, he changes? A friend, I said a friend, he not only shares his love, he not only shares his life, I'm almost out of here, but he shares his lessons. Jesus tells us that he will reveal, good God Almighty, what the Father makes known to him, because Jesus is the revelation of God. He shares with us the deepest secrets of divine truth. He holds nothing back from friends. And as I read my Bible, I discover every now and then God refers to certain men and women by calling them friends. You remember when he spoke to Moses, as a man speaks to his friend. Abraham is called a friend of God. Abraham's seed are called the friends of God. Lazarus is called a friend by Jesus. And in our text, the disciples now are called Christ's friends. And even more amazing, God is messing with me now because Jesus now flips the script. Jesus now used one of the charges of his enemies that was made against him, and he was called a friend of publicans and sinners. It's really getting deep now. What really amazes me is that this man called Judas is leading an army to arrest Jesus, and the Lord calls Judas friend. So the Bible is clear. Friends come in all different types. They come in all different sizes. And the story, my brothers and sisters, is told during the Civil War in America. There was a farmer that was selected to be a soldier, and he had much grief about it because he was a coward. It wasn't because he was fearful, but on the account of his motherless family who would have no breadwinner or caretaker in his absence. The day before his departure, the neighbor by the name of Charles Durham, he came saying to the farmer, he says, I will go instead of you. And the farmer was astonished that his neighbor would volunteer in his place. He stood leaning on one hand and a stain wiping the sweat from his brow. It seemed to be good. It didn't seem to be true. But he looked at the hands of Charles Durham and began to thank God that Charles was going to war, and Charles would fight in a battle that he wouldn't have to fight in. Well, when he got on the battlefield, can I preach here? He was shot and killed. And when the farmer saw in the newspapers the name of the neighbor in the listing of missing, he at once saddled his coal horse and went off on the battlefield and searched for the body of Brother Charles Durham. And when he found his body, he brought it back to the village and to the little churchyard in which they had so often walked together to the house of God. And from the quarry up on the hill, he cut out a plain marble tablet and he carved an inscription with his own hand. It was roughly done, but with every blow there fell a tear from his eyes. And there in the little churchyard, he placed the body of his devoted friend, a substitute, and covered the grave with grass and sods from his garden. And then while his tears dropped, he put the marble tablet on the grave. And when the villagers stopped in to see the monument, they began to weep. It did not say much, but it really touched them. It says, CD, he died for me. And I want to go on the record and say with all of my heart and say with all of my soul that Jesus, he died for me. He paid a debt he did not owe. I owed a debt I could not pay. It wasn't the nails that held him to the cross. It was his love, because it should have been me. Now I'm finished lecturing. Can I take a moment and preach? I dare you to say, neighbor, it should have been me. Come on, say, neighbor,